Okay, so for my session, it's not going to be so much a sermon workshop, but a text study. We're going to have a shir. I'll present sources on the topic of gun control. There's two sugyas in the Gemara that we're going to learn, both of those Gemaras, and the different approaches that the Rishonim take. And then what the Shulchan Aruch rules about gun control in halacha. I think it's a very nuanced topic. It's going to be, it presents certainly a certain perspective that I think many of us will find meaningful and important, but also different approaches that I think are very good for discussion. I led this discussion once in my synagogue, and it brought about very, very vibrant responses, to put it lightly. But we're going to be learning the sources. Jewish law, interestingly, halacha does have very specific and interesting and strong things to say about gun control in halacha. So we'll look at the sources and analyze them and see what kind of conclusions they might have for our society. So we started a program in my synagogue. We're trying to revitalize it. And we had this idea to revitalize it to do hot topics, which is actually the same idea that we had for this High Holiday seminar. And so every Shabbat afternoon between Mincha and Mariv for Shalosh Shudas, we do a different hot topic, something in the news that week. And it has been really great for our synagogue. We're going from barely having a minyan in the afternoon for Mincha, having like 10, 12 on average, and now we're getting like 40 or 50 people. Because we're tackling like really hot topics, whatever's really in the news that week, like immigration and like politics and like difficult stuff, and it's challenging. And I try to present it in a very centrist, kind of like unbiased, non-political manner, and with the hopes that will help us to, not kill each other. But and then they kind of go where they go. So this was one of the first presentations we did as part of that program, and Ilana happened to be there, so that's how I got roped into this. So it doesn't have anything to do with although theoretically you could argue that it has to do with medical ethics because it is a healthcare issue given how many people are dying as a result of guns right now. Okay, so now that I gave the background and introduction, let's jump in. So what does Judaism say about gun control? So it says a lot. There's a lot to say about it, and I think it's pretty specific, and I think it gives us pretty specific guidance. I'm going to share it this way. There's some basic values, so we'll share the basic values, and then there's two sugyas in the Gemara, and those sugyas also are understood differently by different Rishonim, so we'll look at those, and then we have to see which one is actually the Shulchan Aruch codifies, and then I'll just let you decide what you think that means for us and for our society. I think it's kind of clear, but I'll just let it go. So in terms of values, so we know that we have a principle in the Talmud, throughout the Talmud, Chamira Sakanta Miyasura, that's the first source on page 1, that we are more careful about danger, about protecting ourselves from danger, than prohibitions, than Torah prohibitions. Chamira Sakanta Miyasura. And so an example of that, this first source in the Rambam, you know that we have an obligation to put a gag on our roofs, a fence to protect our roofs, to protect them from falling, right? So the way the Rambam writes it, I think is important to see. So you see the second source there on the top of page 1, he says, Echad agag v'echad kol davar sheyesh bo sakana. Whether it's a roof or anything that causes danger, v'roi sheyichashel bo adam, and it's possible that a person could be in danger, v'yamut, and that could die from it, could go in shehaita lo be'er or bor bechatzera, like there's a pit or a well in their courtyard, bein sheyesh behem mayim, bein she'ein behem mayim, whether it's full of water or not, chayiv la'asot lahen chulya gavoa asara tfachim. There's an obligation to put some kind of protection so that people don't get injured. Or la'asot la'kisui kedei shelo yipol ba'adav yamut, or cover it so people don't fall in and die. He goes on, v'chein kol michshol sheyesh bo sakana nefashot, and anything that causes someone danger to their life, mitzvat aseh lahasiro lishamer mimenu, there's a positive commandment to remove it and to protect ourselves from it, to the zahar b'davar yafa yafa, and to be very, very careful, as the Torah says, Yishamar lecha, shmor nafshecha, that we have an obligation to guard our lives. Oftentimes I tell people in the hospital or on the high holidays, they ask me, I got to make sure I'm going to hear shofar, what am I going to do about fasting, what am I going to do? I always say to them, you have one mitzvah right now. The number one mitzvah for you is Yishamar lecha, shmor nafshecha, protect your soul, protect your life, and heal. V'im lo hisir, and if they don't do it, They also violate a negative command. And they violate a negative mitzvah of putting their lives into danger. So that's just a background point that we might come back to. Let's now jump into the sugyas, and we'll discuss these also. The first one is actually a Gemara in Bava Basra, but we're just going to look at the Shulchan Aruch because it's fascinating what happens here. That is, and because it's also not the direct. The next sugya we're going to look at on the next page is, I think, undeniably related to gun control and the Second Amendment in America today. The first one is somewhat connected, and I think it's very connected, and I think most of those who deal with this issue regard it as being similar. We'll see what you think. That is the concept of Hamagadel Kelev Ra. It used to be very common, by the way, in the olden days, that the best source of protection was a really mean dog, right? If you have a dog that you could train and that could protect you, right? People didn't have guns or weapons necessarily, they had dogs. So what does the Talmud say about having a dangerous dog that could hurt other people, right? So it's summarized in the Shulchan Aruch. The Code of Jewish Law here, on the bottom of page 1, says as follows. And it's a little bit complicated because it jumps around. He starts off by saying very clearly, Asur legadel kelev ra. It is forbidden to have a dangerous dog, right? Ela im kainhu asur b'shal shalot shel barzel v'kashur behen, unless it is very tightly bound with a collar, right, and a chain. So you can have that dog, maybe it's scary to people, and they'll stay away from your property because the dog's barking, but it has to be protected and held in, right? Otherwise, it's forbidden to have the dog. You can start thinking about how this might apply to weapons. However, if you live in a very dangerous place, right, the outskirts of the city, and you need to protect your property, then it's mutter legadlo. You can have a dangerous dog, v'kosher b'yom matir b'layla. It has to be tied up during the day, but within your property, it could be free at night, meaning within like the gates. That's the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law. So again, it's saying you shouldn't have a dangerous dog, but if you do, it has to be bound. If you live in a dangerous area, you could have one. Again, it has to be bound, but at night it could run free within your property only. The Ramah then adds. So now this comes to the Ashkenazi codification. He writes, V'yesh omrim, some say, the hashta she'anu sharuyim bein ha'akum. Nowadays, we're living amongst people who don't like Jews. V'umot bechol inyan shari. In such a case, since our lives are in danger, you could have a dangerous dog. And look, people have dangerous dogs. Mihu, however, nira imhu kelev ra. But if it's a bad dog, meaning like a really dangerous dog, an uncontrollable dog, sheyesh lachu sheyazik b'nei adam, that it might actually hurt people, then the asur legada le'im kein kashur b'shal shalot shal barzel. Then you can only have it if it is bound with a chain. So, okay, seems to be like there's some permission to have this, but only if it's restricted by some kind of safeguards, right? We're going to get more specific soon. What's interesting is that, just by the way, this permission of the Ramah is not completely accepted. The Ramah, who's being here more lenient about owning a dangerous dog, even though if it's a very dangerous dog, he requires it to be chained, leashed. The Yam Shel Shlomo, which is actually the Ramah's cousin, the Yam Shel Shlomo, living at the same time as the Ramah, disagreed. It's a very long piece, so I didn't put the whole piece on the sheet here. I just put a conclusion. He writes here, disagreeing with his cousin, the Ramah, Din kelev ra lo yigadel adam b'toch beito. I think that a person should not have a dangerous dog. Ela b'kshir me'ula. Okay, unless they have a very, very good leash. Umatir b'layla, they can let it run at night. Imhu mipnei chashad ganavim. If they're very worried about thieves. V'lav davka kelev ra, it's not just talking about a dangerous dog, ela stam kelev, any dog. Shehu minaveach b'chol adam kari ra. Any dog that might bite someone or kind of like chases people, that's considered what I mean by a kelev ra, a dangerous dog. V'davka klavim ketanim lenoi habayit. This is really just, small, friendly dogs. Or kai gavla. She'adu lechosh enu mazik mutter. That everyone knows it won't damage, then it's allowed. Afilu below kshira, even without being tied up. But then he concludes, Ashrei Misha Nizhar, praiseworthy is someone who is careful about this, V'tavo alav bracha, and they will be blessed by being extra careful. Let's look at the Gemara now, because now we're going to get more specific. Let's just keep this in mind, because we're going to come back to this. We need to see the Gemara, and we'll just look at some pieces of it, and start talking a little bit more now about Second Amendment, about gun control. I mean, right now, I'm going to just go a little quickly, but then we'll have a discussion, but you can start thinking already, like, if it was just the kelev ra, just the dangerous dog, what have we learned? What do we know now about weapon control? Any initial thoughts?
Keep it locked up.
It has to be locked up.
Don't have it loaded.
Right.
Be careful of that, you know?
Right.
If you're in a dangerous neighborhood, you can have it, but just keep it secure.
Right. So there already seems to be some rules about where it's kept, how it's stored, restricting kind of free access to it.
But this piece about letting it be free within your boundaries at
Right.
night is a little disconcerting. It doesn't even talk about having a fenced-in area.
Right. We assume that's what it means. Because that's what the Gemara is talking about. But you're right. You're right. Right here.
The presumption is still within your own confines of your own home, not wandering your dangerous dog out into the community. It's for your self-protection in your own home. And then even then, if it's really dangerous, you have to protect it.
Right.
Prevent it from.
Yeah, it's just scary because we know about people who have kids who, you know, if it can run free at night because it's nighttime and it's your property, what does that mean for the other people who live in your home? It just raises that concern.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you don't have the road text from Rabbi. Because that's a good one in support of those who wanted access to gun, who feel like they should in order for self-preservation protection.
Right. It is. I didn't put it on here, but you're right. That theoretically could be a source. That what she's referring to is that the Rabbah, it's a Gemara, which says if someone is digging a tunnel into your house and coming to attack you, you're supposed to get up and stop them.
And also someone who's pursuing you with the intent to kill you.
Right.
You know, and that's sort of the justification that's used.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what I'm looking at here are what are the restrictions?
Right.
What are the protections that Talmudic law imposes? But you're right, there is some assumption that there is some permission to protect oneself.
I think there's this parallel of this as a dog, so it's something that you can have for sport or for fun or for other uses, and then also for protection. So if you look at arguments in the gun control debate and like what are the areas where it could be allowed and what are the restrictions or what are the acceptable uses versus like again, essentially what's the balance, and something like a dangerous dog has multiple uses.
Right.
In the debate we talk about.
Yeah.
It also seems like it's so far only talking about on your own property.
Right.
Meaning, not what can you bring your dangerous dog out to the market with you,
right.
and what your obligations are if that happens all the time.
Interesting. Good. Yeah.
Two other things that makes me think about the difference between, obviously the dog has some amount of free agency, whereas a dangerous weapon is potentially more an extension of the owner, of the individual. And it also makes me think of the law in Israel for soldiers who have to keep their weapon when they're not on duty locked up behind two locks at any one time. And there are very severe consequences for that. I've always thought about that within the American debate.
Right. Okay, so that's a good segue. So let's jump in. Oh, sorry. Yes, please.
I had one question. You said that this source in the Shomer was also foresighted in Baba Basra.
Yeah.
And I just do have that.
I don't remember the page number that it's on, although I intentionally put my email address on here. I have notes and other sources on this that I'm more than happy to send anyone. So please send me and I'll share all of my resources on this. Yeah. Okay, then is the sugya that I think is especially relevant. I mean, that one was too, but this is like very specific. It's about selling weapons. There's a sugya in Avodah Zarah about who can you sell weapons to, when can you sell weapons, and I think it gives us some more direction. And we won't do the whole thing. We'll just do what I underlined. I think that those are the main points. So here is, let's just start from the top, page 2. So it says, Ein mochrin lahem. This is talking about the non-Jews that they were living amongst at the time. Ein mochrin lahem lo zayin v'lo klei zayin. You cannot sell them weapons or any like accoutrements of weapons, like any types of weapons. Ve'ein mashchizin lahen. You can't even sharpen their weapons. That's a zayin. Ve'ein mochrin lahen lo sadan v'lo kolarin v'lo kvalim v'lo shalshalot. These are all different types of like battle armor, basically, right? Collars and different types of things that people use in battle. V'lo kavalim v'lo shal. I read that. Shal barzel, echad ove kochavim ve'echad kuti. Whether it's an idol worshiper or one of the kutins. My taima, what's the reason you can't sell weapons to them? If we're going to say that it's because they're going to kill us, but do we really expect every non-Jew is going to kill us? We know that can't be because we have another rule, ha'amrat, you're allowed to have yichud with them. You're allowed to be in a room privately with them, and so that implies that we're not afraid that everyone is going to murder us. Actually, it's because we're afraid they're going to sell it to someone who we think is dangerous. Oved Kochavim referring to here as not every single non-Jew in the world, as someone who we think is especially immoral or dangerous to us, or presents a danger to society. So we can't sell weapons to someone because we think they might sell it to someone who's going to be dangerous. So there's a prohibition in the Gemara against selling weapons or even sharpening weapons. That's how it starts, right? No selling weapons. Then it gets a little bit more specific. So we can skip to the next underlined. Amar of Dimi bar Abba, Kederech she'asher limchor la'oved kochavim, asher limchor lelistim Yisrael. And the truth is, and if it's true what I was saying, it applies to Jews also. It's not just about selling to idol worshippers who are dangerous. If there's a Jew who has been a criminal, then you can't sell to that person either. It's not about religion or race or anything like that. It's about criminal activity. So there's a prohibition against selling to a listim Yisrael, a Jew who has stolen. Hachidami, if we're afraid they're going to murder, that's obvious. That's what we are already talking about. If they're not going to steal, then why? If they're not going to murder, then why can't we sell to them? So the Gemara answers, it must be le'olam de lo katil. It's not that they're going to murder. So what are you talking about? B'mashmuta, with a thief. D'zimnin de'avidat tzulei nafshek. That sometimes when someone is stealing things, they're going to have a weapon with them and they're going to be threatening people and then they might come to kill. So in other words, what it's concluding here is that if there's someone who you think is a murderer, of course you can't sell them a weapon. But it's even someone who's not intending to be a murderer, but because they have the weapon, they live a lifestyle where they might end up murdering someone, then also you can't sell a weapon to. Right?
In the Iran-Contra affair, like we're selling weapons to...
Well, this has massive implications for Israel. This is a major discussion about what does Israel sell their weapons to, and this is a very controversial and troubling issue.
Yeah.
Because what?
We're just arming the world.
Yes, exactly. So it's a little bit of a problem. But I'm just sharing the sources here, not commenting on or not advising world leaders. Although if they ask my opinion, I'll happily share it.
But just to go back to Rachel's point earlier for a moment, the function of a gun is either to kill something or someone, or to intimidate someone because you have the ability to kill them or harm them, right? And whereas for a dog, or something else that, like a knife, has another function to it, and I wonder if that makes a difference here.
Well, I think so. Actually, let's conclude. If you look at the last line, so right now we have said you can't sell a weapon. They're talking about swords, right? But you can't sell a weapon to someone who might come to hurt someone else. When's the one time the Gemara allows it? So you go to the bottom of the page. It's the one time it allows it about Idna. There is a time when we sell them. To come as Abin, hey, look, we sometimes do sell weapons. Who do we sell to? Amar Ravashi, leparsai de megano ilahu. That the Persians, basically the government, they were living under Persian control. We do help arm the police, basically, their police force, who were protecting them. The idea is, and this is not getting into police issues right now, but just the purpose of it. I know there's so much that we could talk about here and so many implications and so many concerns, and I agree. But let's look at least what the Gemara is trying to state with it is demiganu alai, that they are protected. In other words, if it's being used for self-defense, demiganu for some kind of protection, then like arming 3-year-olds, that would be what we should be doing. I'm joking, Ali G joke. That's the goal here, though, Sharon, to your question. Like when it's allowed, when it's some kind of self-defense motivation, and it can be controlled, clearly, because we assume that these kind of official police force is not just some kind of militia. We're assuming that it's like an official body that is intending to protect us. Although we're going to see in a second what the Rishonim do with this, and it's going to have a massive implication with how narrow or how broadly we take it. So I'll show you that.
Are we going back to the chunk about shields?
Well, we could. Right.
Well, not just because literally the self-defense stuff we were just talking about in the middle here, it talks about selling shields. So like what happens if these people we're not selling to, we are selling to, lose their weapons in battle,
Right.
And then they have their shields left. Are they going to use their shields as weapons,
Right.
or are they going to run away?
Right.
Can we sell them shields, which are self-defense, like by definition?
Right.
What if they then use those shields as weapons? And to me, that reminded me of the guns versus knives debate, of the idea of like, well, a gun definitely makes it easier to kill someone, and then people could say, yeah, we'll find a different weapon if you don't have guns. So like, at what point does the responsibility shift to the person who has the item as it being a weapon, and at what point is it the manufacturer?
Yes. Excellent. Good. Let's look at the Rishonim now, because this is going to make all the difference, because they debate on page 3. What is the reason for all of this that we just read? What's this all coming from? And they give 3 radically different reasons, and then what I really want to show you is like, okay, so then what does the Shulchan Aruch, how does it get codified as what is the official reason? And I think it has very important implications. You'll tell me what you think. So here's the 3 possibilities on page 3. So one is Rashi. Rashi just commenting on the iron chains. When I mentioned like the military gear, shalshalot, he says, proish, I don't know exactly what that means, some kind of French word. V'kol hanach, why are all these prohibitions? Mishum de lo lizku bahu Yisrael. The only concern we have here, according to Rashi, this is going to be one totally certain approach, is we don't want Jews to get hurt. And so we can't sell to anyone who we think might hurt a Jew. We sell to these police forces, apparently we trusted them, so we're okay with them having weapons because they're not going to hurt us. But our only concern is, will a Jew get hurt? That's Rashi. To him, it's some kind of lifnei iver. If I sell to them, they're going to come back and hurt someone in my community. And this might apply. Like, what if I'm selling it to someone? I'm selling it abroad or somewhere where there's no Jews. Is that going to have an implication? That's Rashi. Okay. Tosfos has a similar idea, but not exactly the same. He writes, second source there, or they write, I should say, Umaskana maskinan de asr lemzavnin Yisrael chashud. So we concluded you're not allowed to sell it to a Jew or anyone who is suspected of being dangerous. Im tomar ma'ishnam milifnei delifnei delal. Well, isn't this just lifnei iver, or it's like lifnei delifnei, meaning the person's going to sell it to someone else who's going to sell it? Why do I have to care about that? V'yeshlomer dehasamayir be'ovid kochavim. We're talking about ovid kochavim she'eno muzhar al lifnei iver, who they are not commanded not to sell to someone else. So we're not as concerned if they sell to someone else. But in this case, the Ma'ir Yisrael Chashud, they were worried about a Jew that is suspected of being a thief or some kind of being dangerous. We can't sell it to a Jew because we're afraid that they are going to sell it to someone else, and that will cause damage. And so we're trying to protect other Jews from being involved in selling things that are going to hurt other people. That's Tosfos' reason. The Rambam gives a totally different reason, and we're going to be anxiously wanting to find out, do we follow Rashi, who's saying, all we care about is Jews not getting hurt, or look at what Rambam says. Totally different perspective. This is the third source there. This is in his Perush Mishnayos. Kol davar sheyesh bo nizak l'Rabbi. Anything that has a danger to the public, he then quotes our Gemara. Kagon, kli hamelchama kulam. All military, all war accoutrements, the kli ha'inui, are things that cause pain to other people. There's a prohibition against selling. Kagon, shalshalot, va'kvalim, va'kolarim, all these different things that they wore. V'chein ein mitakmin lahem kli macham. We can't even fix accoutrements of war. We can't be involved with battle items, right? Can't do anything. Sell them or fix them. Ve'ein lotshin lahem chavera v'chamin hiyotzim. We don't sell any kind of military items. Why? Shelo la'azor lamashchitim ba'aretz ba'ashchasa. Because we don't want to be involved with destruction in the world. He does not limit it to Jews. He does not limit it to killing. Any kind of hashkata, any kind of damage, we have to be avoiding. I always remember when I was in Chovevei Torah, I lived in Riverdale. I remember I once went during Elul this time of year, the yeshiva in Riverdale, the Telz yeshiva. The head rabbi gives like a musar shmooze every night of Elul. I remember one night he got up, he used to give these fiery shmoozes. And he said, tonight I want to talk about hashkasa, damage. Judaism is against any kind of damage. Even a can of soda. I once saw one of our students drink a soda and then smash it on the ground. That's forbidden by the Torah. And he was like yelling, don't damage anything. We are opposed to damaging. Anyways, it was like very moving. And that's what the Rambam's saying here. Any kind of damage is forbidden. So we shouldn't be involved with selling weapons or sharpening weapons because they are part of damaging the world. It's not related to Jews. It's not related to just killing. It's related to damages, right? So now the question is going to be the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch's job was to look at the Rishonim and decide which one is the actual Jewish law. This is going to have a big difference, yes?
So it says the Rabbi here, and you can have Rashid Pilot, you can have Rabbi like the public domain. You can also just have Rabbi like a lot. So is this usually read as anything that causes damage to a lot of people or to the public, like something that hurt someone else?
It's like public. There's Nezaka l'Rabbi. It's a prohibition
like
there
one
against
person, but it's like somebody else, like, you know, if I shatter something in the marketplace and someone steps on it, hurts
it's
themselves.
endangering the public.
So public, it's like a person, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily lots of people.
Right.
It's just like,
It hurts one person, that's the prohibition, yes. So what does the Shulchan Aruch say? Which side does the Shulchan Aruch take? I think it's going to make a big difference about what our attitude is. I mean, everyone can have their own attitude, but what is the, sort of halacha's attitude? So here's what the Shulchan Aruch says. The middle source, I'm sorry, it's not numbered, but Sif Hey. He says, Ein mochrin lahem. We can't sell to them. V'lo Yisrael hachashud limchor lahem, or to Jews that will sell to others. V'lo Yisrael listim, or to Jews who are thieves. Davar sheyesh bo nezek l'Rabbi. Who is the Shulchan Aruch codifying in accordance with? Yes, the Shulchan Aruch takes the Rambam's approach, the most expansive, meaning the most, the most prohibitive against guns. How do I say it better? The one that restricts the most ownership of weapons, right? That's what the Rambam takes. Gagon, dovim, ve'orios, even the animals, v'lo shum, klei zayim, v'lo sadan, and not any types of weapons. And then he lists all the different types of weapons. V'lo mashchisin lehem, klei zayim, we can't even sharpen the weapons. V'lo bonim lehem, makom, shedani bo, b'nei adam. We don't even build places where they make judgments for war. And then he concludes in Sivav, Hayu Yisrael, shochnim, bein ovdei kokavim. If Jews are living amongst non-Jews, and they make some kind of deal with them, they're like some treaty or something. Mutter limchor klei zayin ovdei hamelech v'gaisotav. He does allow, though, they could sell to the ovdei hamelech, meaning the people that work for the government, mibnei she'osim imahem melchama im tzari medina, because they're there to protect them. Like we conclude lahatzila, to save them. V'nimso maginim alehem, and we see that they're just there to protect them. Sharehem shruyim betocha, and they are living amongst them. So you could sell to those who are protecting you, but you shouldn't be involved in selling any items that cause damage in the world to anybody, not just murdering. And I think he's implying very severe restrictions on the Second Amendment, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm reading it wrong or, yeah.
Just, you've been using the word damage, and it seems like, and nezek is certainly what the Shulchan Aruch uses, but when Rambam says that he's talking about like full-on slaughter, destruction, like the word that's used for like hamabul, kind of like, and I'm just wondering if what valence that word is carrying.
Yeah, it could be that I'm reading it more expansively. I mean, hashkata. It's I guess more than nezek. It's more than hurting someone. It does imply destruction, but I don't think it's just killing. Because killing, it would say killing. I think the point I'm trying to make is that it's prohibiting, I guess more than damaging people, but like significantly harming people. Maybe that's a stronger way to say it, but it's not just saying though you can't because it might kill. It's a lower bar than that. It's caught any kind of significant damage. I mean, hashkasa. I could see it even being some kind of severe psychological trauma. I mean, it's
communal trauma.
Yeah.
There's various ways of causing destruction to the community by hurting individuals. Nezek is sort of more focused, as you say, it seems to me, but it may lead to a greater sense of destruction of the community.
Right.
That was kind of what I was trying to get at earlier, probably. But also because here Rambam says claim like
right.
That to me really feels more like a hamabul. This kind of like destruction
right.
that's going on.
Right, but the reason, right, yeah. And the reason is the destruction, the damage that it's causing, the pain that it's inflicting, not just murdering or... It's fascinating because when you look, there's this new book that just came out about Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, this Orthodox halachist who died in the 80s. So it's funny because, I try to remove myself from politics just when I'm looking at this. I'm not saying that we should be removed from politics in our lives, but I'm just trying to look like, what does the Torah say? So I think that Rabbi Moshe Feinstein is someone, sorry, okay, sorry, I didn't see your hand. I think he was trying to summarize these sources, right? What do the sources say? And he was someone who I think was not really aware of what's going on in the politics in America. So he wasn't trying to come down on one side. It's just fascinating when I came across this. He says it so clearly. So Rav Moshe Feinstein, this book came out of someone, his grandson, published all of his notes of conversations that they had around the table, whatever. And look at what he writes. This is Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, ultra-Orthodox, 1980s New York. On the bottom of the page, he says, Pam Tama Rabbeinu. One time, Rabbi Feinstein was surprised. Al ma shekor hayom. What's going on in our country today? Kol kach harbe maisim shel retzichut. So much murder. V'tamei echazei shemanichim anashim liknot adachim. B'America. He said, how is it that people are allowed to buy guns in America? He was like, what's going on in our country? Davar shemistama shum medina acheret lo matir. That I don't think any other country would allow this, he said. Hello, ikar ratzichut nasim be'elu. Doesn't most murder, and we also know suicide and many other horrible things, are happening with guns? Lo betekirut shel sakin, not just with being stabbed by knives. V'zei rak rishut shel kama ashirim. It must be the evil of many rich people shelo manichim hamemshela la'osram, that are causing the government to not be allowed to forbid it. That's where Moshe Feinstein, how he summarized the situation as he saw it, which I think is just fascinating, given the kind of political landscape today. Kind of just said it as he saw it.
Knew a lot of lobbyists.
Yeah, right. But he's just like, wait, this is what the Shulchan Aruch says. You can't sell objects that cause hashkata. And he looks around and he says, how is it allowed in America that we can sell it? So I'll just say one line and I want to hear your thoughts, but like I said, I'm trying to present sources in a way I'm not trying to push an agenda. I'm trying to just kind of see what does the Talmud say and how does it inform our political advocacy. It's clear, on the one hand, you could argue that these sources that we saw do allow weapon ownership. It seems to allow that, not prohibit ownership, although there's a number of restrictions, both on how they're maintained, the types of safeguards, and who they can be sold to. Right? There seems to be severe restrictions on who's allowed to sell them. And it seems that Jewish law is encouraging us to avoid them. This seems to be not something that we are encouraged to be part of because it causes hashkata, it causes severe damage, however we want to translate that. And that's something we should be trying to avoid, and even, not just avoid, prevent. Right? We can't even be selling to people who would be selling to other people who would be involved with this. So there seems to be, according to Jewish law, very severe limitations on the Second Amendment. And I think it's clear from the sources, but I'm open. In my synagogue, I share with some people. I shared this, and I kind of said my opinion about this, and it caused an uproar. But, comments.
So I was interested in how you said, so the Shulchan Aruch Paskins, like the Rambam, which is normally the Shulchan Aruch Paskins. It's interesting when you compare it to the Caliph situation, where the Ramah chimed in and actually presented pretty much the opposite kind of value system. Well, if we're living with Goyim who are, out to get us anyway, then anything goes. So I'm wondering, obviously they lived in very different contexts. Rambam eventually had to flee anyway, so it's just interesting to think about the sociology of where they're coming from, in terms of who they trust around them. And Rambam especially was very into the outside society around him. But I'm wondering about, given that the Ramah is silent here, normally the Ramah chimes in when he has something to say, what do you think the Ramah would say in this context? Hashnazi poskim are agreeing?
I think he's agreeing. Look at the source of the Ramah that we saw. He was lenient because he said, Puk Chazi. He said, look at what people are doing. So it wasn't so much that the sources were telling him people should be owning these dangerous dogs. It was that, well, look, everyone's doing it, so let me see if I can find a limud zchut. Let me see if I can find a justification for the fact that everyone has these dangerous dogs. So in this case, though, most likely in the times of the Ramah, when it came to selling weapons, they didn't need to sell weapons. They were living in a kind of economically depressed and preventative society where they weren't able to engage in any kind of business that they wanted to. They probably weren't very involved with selling weapons to non-Jews or to the government or to anybody, so they weren't doing it, so the Ramah didn't have to come up with a justification. Whereas in the first instance, it was the issue of what was happening around him, his need to kind of justify the community practice.
Do you think people weren't at the time of the Ramah buying this?
I don't think Jews had a chance to. I think now in Israel this becomes a very big issue because now we have a government and a state and this is happening. But I don't think Jews had the opportunity economically then. That's my guess. I'm not an expert in that.
You need a lot of discretionary money to be, I would think at the time, given the way they were living, to be buying guns.
That was thinking about Kamara's context where they clearly were in a situation where they were making weapons.
Yeah.
So,
well, we do know that. I mean, we know that from Tanakh, that the Jews at that time were much more prominent. I mean, look at Sefer Daniel and Esther. The Jews had achieved prominence and they were doing business. But even it applies from the Ramah in Poland, 16th century. The reason he's allowing dogs is because they were scared. Like they weren't exactly prominent members of society. They were people who were kind of a little bit ghettoized and scared. So they probably just didn't have the opportunity. And when you look to modern day, Moshe Feinstein, he's like, maybe they had the opportunity then, but he's like, no, for sure shouldn't do this. I think that's involved. It's a good point, Celissa, thank you.
I'm going to assume that everyone in this room is supportive of gun restrictions and very supportive of the text you've shared. So I want to challenge you to argue the other side using Jewish texts. Because you just shared with us a selection here from the Shulchan Aruch about that you can arm people if they're going to be saving us or protecting us. And I mentioned about the Rodef. Because I think it helps us intellectually if we can sort of make arguments to the other side. It helps us to diffuse it too as well. So, and I don't know if you're willing to take me up on this challenge. How would you use Jewish texts to support someone who's a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, who believes that people should have access to firearms for the purposes of defending their family?
Right. You could make the argument, based on these, that gun ownership is allowed. It never said that you can't own a gun or a dangerous weapon. It just placed severe restrictions on it.
Right.
So I think someone could argue, look, you see from this that an upstanding, honest citizen should be allowed, especially if it's for protection and they want to protect their family and they're not a criminal, and that someone could make the argument that that it's permissible to own one.
Right.
I think what it's saying though is that there is severe restrictions.
Right.
I think that's this type of thing that the NRA would not be happy about. This is too many restrictions.
But mentally ill, the same idea that if you know that the
Right.
person's at risk of hurting another person, you can't sell to them. So we have restrictions on the mentally ill community. That would be a restriction that would be aligned with our Jewish values.
Right.
There would also be restrictions on resales, right? So because you're talking about you can't sell to somebody who could potentially sell.
Yes, right.
Who doesn't?
Yes.
how do you decide who's dangerous?
I understand that.
The biggest challenge is the Rodef issue, of course, is that we're seeing being played out, which is people deciding someone's wearing a hoodie, he's about to kill me, so I shoot him first, and then getting off. Having no consequences because you made the Rodef case, essentially. I thought that person was threatening me.
Right.
And so therefore I have the right to protect myself, because we have a right to protect ourselves. So I shot him first, before I found out whether in fact, whether you want me to wait till I'm dead before I find out. So I have a right. Someone's walking around wearing this hat, wearing a hoodie, wearing whatever, it's a different color.
Yeah.
Right, which by the way,
Evidence that he's a Rodef.
which by the way, if we would have taken the time, if we took the time to go into the Rodef, the Rodef isn't even allowed to kill in those cases. The Rodef is only allowed if there's no other option.
Right.
They're supposed to take every other option first. So people sometimes expand what they mean by Rodef.
Because people forget anyway.
Right.
But that point is to stop the person,
Right.
even if the only way is ultimately to take the person's life, but that's not the intent. The intent is simply to stop the person.
Right.
But you have that happening, that's like we're every day.
Right.
The metaphor of the dog, I think, is helpful here too, because you have this, you sort of have this balance that's sort of discussed, right? Even in the original text, it was like, you can't own, you shouldn't own this unless under these circumstances. And in these circumstances, then you can do this. In these circumstances, you can do this. And so as the danger level sort of rises to you in your property, then your the level of permissiveness also rises. But at no point does it say, you just walk around with your dangerous dog, willy-nilly, to guard you from whatever danger might be on the street. It's basically like, raise this dog, but it always has to be, to a certain extent, in the confines of your home. you know, at night, if you're living in a dangerous section, then it can be out. But you know, the analog might be that, okay, you know, like you control your home or something with your firearm. It's not leaving your firearm out on the table. Like, right. You can't do anything on its own, right? So it's this interesting sort of it's an interesting idea.
Well, the dangerous dog thing actually leads into an issue that I've personally been pushing with legislators about holding gun owners, mostly fathers, civilly liable, criminally liable, if their son steals the father's gun and then shoots somebody. And instead of the father going, oh, what was me? I can't believe my son did that. That person, because following this, needs to be held liable, responsible, as an accessory to murder. Right. Because you didn't protect the dog from, you know, being used.
It wasn't locked up.
Wasn't locked up. You know, whatever. So, which we don't have the law at the moment. It doesn't we hold bartenders responsible if they give too much alcohol to someone who they see is drunk and goes out and causes damage. We have laws that actually hold bartenders responsible. We don't have laws that hold gun owners responsible for someone who takes their gun because it's not locked up and then causes damage to somebody.
Rabbis.
It's like insane.
Yeah.
This is so fascinating. It could go on forever. I'm going to segue.